Welcome to another dimension, a dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A dimension where reality is subjective, and memories can be altered with the flick of a switch. In this dimension, we find ourselves in the year 2084, where humanity has colonized Mars, and a man named Douglas Quaid finds himself haunted by a recurring dream of a mysterious woman and a trip to the Red Planet. Seeking to uncover the truth behind his dreams, he embarks on a journey that will challenge his perception of reality and uncover a sinister plot that threatens the fate of the planet. But in this world of shifting identities and blurred lines, can Quaid trust his own mind? Or is he merely a pawn in a larger game? As the stakes get higher and the lines between reality and fantasy blur, Quaid must navigate a labyrinth of secrets and half-truths to uncover the truth about his past and save the future of Mars. Join us as we venture into the unknown depths of the human mind in a journey that will leave you questioning your own reality. Welcome to Total Recall. The year is 2084. Douglas Quaid is living a good life on Earth with his wife, Lori. He has bad dreams in which he is fighting with some aliens on Mars. But Lori helps him forget the dream. Douglas seems incomplete. He wants to do something different and tries to convince his wife to go to Mars with him. But Lori doesn't want to go. Douglas leaves for work, and on the way, he notices a recall commercial on TV, which creates a fake memory in people's minds. At work, Douglas asks his friend Harry about recall, but Harry tells him it's no good and that he should forget about it. But Douglas is still very curious, so after finishing work, he goes to a recall facility nearby, where he meets McLean, a supervisor who introduces Douglas to a new memory called Ego Trip. Douglas can voluntarily choose his character and his partner, and so he does. He chooses to become a secret agent to travel to Mars on a mission. He then selects his companion, an athletic brunette woman. He picks the woman's features, and the computer creates a render of her, and to Douglas's surprise, it's same woman whom he had seen in his dreams. He then falls asleep under the influence of the sedation. When Dr. Lull starts the process of implanting the memory in Douglas, he suddenly wakes up and is very angry. "You blew my cover!" he shouts. When McLean approaches him, he grabs his throat and begins to choke him. Dr. Lull gives him more sedatives, and shortly afterwards, Douglas falls asleep again. Dr. Lull tells McLean that he has not yet imposed any memory implants, and maybe Douglas is reacting like this because he has actually been to Mars already. Dr. Lull tells McLean that it seems that Douglas's memory has been erased before. McLean takes the sleeping Douglas and puts him in a cab with the help of one of his assistants, removing all Douglas's records from his data. When Douglas becomes conscious, he finds himself in a self-driving Johnny cab. Douglas does not remember anything. He reaches his building and goes to his apartment, at which point his friend Harry stops him and reminds him about the warning he gave him at work about not going to recall. Douglas does not remember anything, so he can't tell him anything. 3 more men show up and grab Douglas and take him around the corner. Harry wants to kill Douglas, but Douglas fights off all 4 men before killing each of them. Afterwards, he looks surprised as though he did not know how he was able to fight like that. He arrives at his house as soon as possible and turns off all the lights in the house. Douglas informs Lori about what just happened. Lori is upset over seeing the blood on his hands. When Douglas goes to the washroom, Lori talks to a man named Richter on the phone. When he freshens himself and comes out of the washroom, someone shoots at him. Douglas saves himself but finds out that it was actually Lori that tried to kill him. Douglas defends himself. He takes a gun from Lori and grabs her. Lori tells Douglas that his memory has been removed 2 weeks ago and that S' new memory had been implanted. Lori also tells him that she is not his real wife and that it's all fake. Lori tries to distract Douglas as Richter and his men are on their way. But Douglas hits Lori on the head, making her unconscious, then runs away before Richter and his men arrive. Now we find out that Lori was assigned with Douglas as part of an assignment. In fact, she is Richter's wife. Richter tells Lori to pack her goods and tells her to leave, then pursues Douglas himself by tracking Douglas using GPS. Douglas goes to the subway, where Richter follows him with the men. Douglas kills Richter's men and escapes on the train. He books a room at an anonymous hotel, where he receives a call from a stranger who tells him that Douglas gave him a suitcase. He also informs him that he has a tracker fixed in his skull and that he should wrap a wet towel over his head if he wants to survive. Douglas follows his instructions. Richter, who is chasing Douglas with his man named Helm, loses Douglas's signal on his GPS. Douglas flees once more, ending up in a cab in an under-construction building in a deserted area. The cab malfunctions, causing it to collide with the wall and explode. Mr. Cohagen, the governor of Mars, tells Richter the location of the blast. They believe Douglas will be in the same place. Meanwhile, Douglas opens the briefcase, which contains some money, ID cards, and some gadgets. In addition, there is a video message for Douglas from the real Douglas, who informs him that before his memory was erased, his real name was Hauser, and that he was an agent of Cohagen on Mars. But he found out some dirty secrets about Cohagen and Mars. When Cohagen found out, he erased Hauser's memory. Hauser tells him how to get the bug out of his skull. After taking out the bug, Hauser tells him to go to Mars to meet a woman there named Melina. Richter is already there with his men. Douglas puts the bug in a candy bar and tosses it to the mice before running away. When Richter arrives instead of Douglas, the men are tracking the bug, which has been eaten by rat. Later, Douglas reaches Mars, where a huge dome is built in which the people of Mars live. Artificial oxygen is supplied in this dome. Many Martians are mutants due to massive solar radiation and bad air. Richter follows Douglas here as well. Douglas books a room at a hotel called the Hilton. He also keeps something for himself in the hotel safe, and upon checking the safe, he finds a note on the back of it saying that he has to meet Melina. Douglas arrives at the address with a cab driver named Benny, who he befriends and meets Melina. Melina seems to know him. She thinks that he is Hauser and is delighted to see him. But when she learns that Douglas had his memory erased and has been living on Earth as a married man, she gets angry, refuses to help him, and tells him to leave. When Douglas returns to his room, a doctor named Edgemar, who is the founder of Recall, visits him and tells him that he is still in the Recall facility and that everything that is happening is just a dream which he can't wake up from. Laurie also arrives and tries to convince him to listen to the doctor. The doctor gives Douglas a capsule to take that will wake him up. He tells him that when he wakes up, he will be back in the real world again. When Douglas sees sweat on the doctor's forehead, he realizes that this is not his fake memory but reality and shoots the doctor. Then some men come through the wall and grab Douglas and take him away. But Melina arrives and rescues Douglas. Melina and Laurie have a fight. Douglas kills Laurie by shooting her in the head, and then Melina and Douglas escape. When Richter sees Laurie dead, he decides to avenge her death by killing Douglas. Douglas and Melina escape from Richter's men and arrive at the rebel base. Richter follows them with his men and reaches Venusville and the last resort. There they have a fight with the rebels. When Cohagen finds out, he orders Richter to come back. Cohagen blocks the entire area and shuts down the oxygen supply system. Due to this, it is difficult for these people to survive. Benny also happens to be with Douglas and Melina. The leader of the rebels, Quato, is a mystery guy. No one has ever seen him. Quato has the ability to read people's minds. Douglas wants to meet Quato to get his memory back. George, who is a rebel, takes Douglas to a separate room, where we discover that Quato is actually part of George's body with a small head and hands coming out of his stomach. Quato reads Douglas's mind, where he discovers that Cohagen found reactors made by aliens during the extraction of turbinium in the pyramid mine, and that Cohagen hid them. Meanwhile, Cohagen's men attacked the rebel hideout and killed George and Quato. It turns out that Benny actually works for Cohagen and led Cohagen's men straight to Douglas and Melina. Melina and Douglas are captured and brought to Cohagen's agency, where Douglas is told that Cohagen and Hauser are actually best friends, and that the whole plan was Hauser's so they could kill Quato. As proof, Cohagen shows Douglas a video of Hauser thanking him for leading them straight Quato. Cohagen orders Hauser's memory to be restored, and a new memory implanted in Melina before leaving. While the doctors are working on it, Douglas frees himself and flees with Melina after killing everyone in the lab. Before dying, Quato had told Douglas to start the reactors, so he goes to where the reactors are located. Meanwhile, when Cohagen finds out that Douglas has escaped once again, he finally orders Richter to kill him. Richter quickly leaves to finally kill Douglas. Benny tries to kill them both, Douglas and Melina, with a huge mine-drilling machine, but Douglas kills Benny by drilling a hole through the machine door. They then find their way to the reactor. Richter arrives there with his army platoon. Douglas uses a hologram device to confuse the soldiers and kills them all. Meanwhile, Richter gets on a freight elevator that goes straight to the reactor. Douglas jumps on the elevator and the two get into a fight once again. During the battle, both of Richter's arms are severed, and he falls to his death. When Douglas heads to the control area of the reactor, Cohagen is already there. Cohagen wants to destroy this place. As he begins to kill Douglas, Melina arrives and shoots him, but he activates the bomb. Douglas picks up the bomb and throws it away, and when it explodes, a large vent area is opened, causing the suction to start. Cohagen plummets to the Martian surface. Douglas and Melina hold on for their lives. Douglas succeeds in starting the reactor. He and Melina then crash out on the land of Mars. Cohagen dies from massive solar radiation and a lack of oxygen. Before Douglas and Melina are killed in the same gruesome way, the reactor starts up, and a huge amount of breathable air is released from the pyramid mine, which quickly spreads across the entire atmosphere. The air pressure is so high that it breaks all the glass in the dome, and the people who were dying from a lack of oxygen are now able to breathe freely. Douglas and Melina also survive and gaze in amazement at the clear and blue sky of Mars. Douglas is not sure if this is his dream or reality. Melina tells him that if it's a dream, he should kiss her before he wakes up. And so, our journey through the shifting sands of reality comes to an end. Douglas Quaid has uncovered the truth about his past and saved the future of Mars. But at what cost? For in this world of implanted memories and manipulated identities, the lines between truth and fiction, reality and fantasy, have become hopelessly blurred. What was once certain is now uncertain, and what was once real may now be nothing more than a dream. So join us again, dear friends, as we venture once more into the sci-fi zone, where the line between reality and fiction is always in question, and the truth may be stranger than we ever imagined.